Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spotlight on CS Ops. I'm here with my co-host, Matthew Lind. Hey, Matthew.
Hello, John.
And today we have the pleasure of chatting with Matt Harmon. Matt Harmon has been in the business here now for, better half of a decade in customer success. Haven't we all, though, I think, at least on this call. So we've got a lot of experience on this call. But tell us, maybe to just get started a little bit, Matt, tell us a little bit more about your journey and where you've come from and how you got to a decade or so of customer ops experience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, first off, appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today. And yeah, the journey for CS Ops has been a long and interesting one. Really, as we look in the current landscape, CS Ops is only now its own bucket. People up until a couple of years ago said, no, that's just sales ops. No, CS Ops is significantly different. The tool set, the tech stack, the farming versus hunting mentality of your employees you're supporting is different. So they need to be treated as different. For me, really looking at my CS ops, where it all started, really started when I was an individual contributor CSM at a startup. I've always been a person who loves data. I love numbers. I love Excel, and I've been customer facing now for almost 25 years. When you're in a SaaS company, you get access to data on our customers. And this is going back, yeah, wow. Kind of scary to think back. It's been 10, 12 years since I started at this company, but we were getting weekly dumps it was a file sync and share. We're getting weekly dumps of usage. I started putting that data together, VLOOKUPs, pivot tables into an Excel with conditional formatting to chart the number of users they had on their account or the amount of data that they were using. And I was identifying trends. And this was just helping me as that individual contributor. And all of a sudden I kind of had this eureka moment like, well, if I'm doing this for mine, why don't I expand my thought process and work and help this with other CSMs? And really formulated a de facto CS ops team of myself to support the other CSMs, so we would all, you know, rise, bring up the water, and everyone would end up doing better. And kind of formulated that. At that point, after doing that for a few months, bosses were coming and like, okay, well, hear about all these CS platforms. You're obviously good with data. Customer success, and I started building out, in building everything we did in success plays into a CS platform. So really where it all came from was just pure curiosity and experimenting on my side, which I just kept parlaying into bigger and bigger things.
Them's
I'm
were the
sort of,
days though when your CSP was a VLOOKUP in Excel. I love that.
I
Yeah.
heard somebody say not so long ago, I think it was another podcast too. Someone's like, well, sales ops has, benefited from Salesforce or at least a CRM for so long, but CS somehow got doomed to spreadsheets until, much later in the game. So I applaud you, Matt, for leading the charge out of the spreadsheet exclusive world.
But at the end of the day, I don't care what the platform it is that you're on, whether it's Gainsight, Tatango, Client Success, Turn Zero, whatever it is. If you don't know that underlying data, that platform is useless to you. So really, even as I've progressed and built out teams at different other stops, early on, I bring make sure my ops people know the underlying data, that they can understand where it comes from, how it's manipulated, how it's used. So this way they can then, when working with the various platforms, know the why, know where it came from, and how best to use it. So that going back to the original day in Excel, that never leaves me, and I don't think will ever will, because you need to know about the foundation.
I almost hear you saying both in getting out of Excel, but then also saying, hey, you were taking data and mapping it and lining up stuff to gather more insights. Like it's almost like you were scaling yourself. for your own book of business, like, hey, I cannot just, call through all of this data over and over again. I need a tool to help, you know, shine insights on certain things. And then you went, well, and this could apply to everybody else too.
Right. And being 100% blunt and transparent, I was at a startup. We went through a round of layoffs. My boss kept me over another CSM who had slightly better numbers because I had this value add. I had the ability to create these metrics and do this reporting that nobody else on the team had. So that personally set me aside. So when I talk to young professionals and they ask for career advice, it's not, one of the things I'm always talking to them about is it's not only doing your normal job, but what makes you different? What additional value do you bring that sets you apart? Because that's sometimes what's going to be the thing that decides whether, when there is an unfortunate rift that maybe keeps you there a little bit longer or sets you up for promotion because it also can, as this I went from an individual contributor to building out organizations and focusing on operations because I could look at a problem as both that CSM, but also that data mindset. How do as a CSM, here's the journey I need to take my customer on. Okay, great. Now, how do I take those blueprints and transform them into Gains IDs, to Tangoese, whatever platform it is, making sure you hit all the checkpoints to drive value for your install base.
I really like that feedback. And you're touching on a few things there. I think for me, like one is there's these fundamentals in CS ops, data being one of them. It doesn't matter whether you're building that on Tatango, Gainsight, like who cares? It's an engine, and every car drives with an engine. It doesn't matter if it's a Ford engine, a GM engine, or maybe it does if it's a Ferrari engine, but but for the most part, engines are all the same. And so you just got to have that fundamental aspect of how do I build an engine? Like how do I fire the pistons to make the car move forward? Is there any other fundamentals that you see in your in your world that you've experienced in the startup world or in the large enterprise world that is just, you got to get these things in place before you really are able to move the needle?
So I feel that, especially when it comes to thinking about the customer journey that you're sending your customers on, at the end, I look at a lot of problems more in the customer experience mindset as opposed to customer success, looking at the holistic environment for that customer. We're customers, we're consumers in our everyday life. Whether it's you're getting your coffee at Pizza Starbucks or you're going to Lowe's or Home Depot to buy 2x4s for whatever project you have going on. You have all these interactions that you personally deal with every day. So it's how you can transform that into the product that you have. I look at a lot of uh, what I strive for with my interactions with our customers, especially focusing on digital, is we should know a lot about our customer. I should not be asking a customer basic questions like, what's your name? What's your network config? What have you bought? I should know that. And so to me, the big thing with ops, and especially when you look at data, is stitching together what you know about the customer without going big brother on a customer. For example, in a typical SaaS environment, you have all your login information. John logged in today at 2 o'clock. Great. You know, I, as a CS professional, I don't want to send a message saying, "Hey, John, thanks for logging in yesterday at 2 o'clock. How was your experience?" No, that's too big brother. It's more along the lines of, "Hey, I see you've logged in lately. Have you noticed these things?" Or conversely, somebody who hasn't logged in. Hey, I'm not going to say, "Hey, it's been 93 days and 2 minutes since you last logged in." No, it's been a little bit since you logged in last. Since you've been gone, here's the top 3 new features that you may have missed, things to drive them back into whatever the product or service that you have. And so, really, for me in the ops, it's how I take my experiences and what I like to have happen to me and try and parlay that, especially in a digital manner or as best I can.
I really love this approach of, sort of slipping in, if you will, data about a user's experience without, to your point, I mean, like my audit log shows that. Uh, yeah,
Netflix does this all the time to you. It gives you suggestions. Hey, because you watched these 5 films, these documentaries, you probably are going to like this as opposed to something that's completely unrelated. It's just so it's part of our culture. 10 years ago, this probably would not have flown well, but everything in our world now, it's SaaS. It's the our product knows more about us than we know, and we're okay with that as long as it's not thrown in our face overtly. I think that's that fine line.
I do think there's an interesting expectation now about that. Like yes, Netflix serves it at Amazon. Let's just name drop all of the tools that we're sort of used to. You might also enjoy, and I think customer success with experience, as you've termed it, can borrow selected pages from that playbook and
Yeah,
say, hey, if you're doing this, you might also like that, and it's value added instead of Big Brother monitoring.
yeah, I definitely think it's more of the norm, and I think it's going to get amplified through the level through leveraging of these chat agents, whether it's Gemini, Chat GPT, or whatever the other new flavor is. People are becoming not desensitized, but more used to the use common, more used to this being out there and part of their life. I do a Google lookup today, and it's gonna, I'm gonna search for something, and it's gonna at the top of the page say, give me a brief synopsis of what it thinks I'm looking for, and then gives me all the links to it. So I'm kind of used to that. Don't going into the SaaS world, I actually expect at some level AI to be giving me suggestions on whatever the product is. Let's say it's networking hardware, for example. I expect at some point AI to be able to come in and say, hey, we see here how you have your configuration, but based upon our best practices, what we know is best, we would suggest these 3 things to change. It's not automatically changing. You, the consumer, still have to make the changes, but it's giving you the education. And I think one of the things with ops, especially in the last year, is really understanding how you can incorporate AI into your tech stack to give your end customers a better experience. It doesn't matter if you're selling them, farm feed, network hardware, everything in between. How can you understand what your customer is doing and provide them a better use of your product? So this way, they stay as a customer longer.
I'm so looking forward to that in this industry because I do think as well that's the next wave. And today we're hard coding all these touches, right? Like you mentioned, like you haven't logged in a while. Whatever tool you use, you got to hard code that pop
Yeah,
up or that message that comes out and says, "Hey, when a customer hasn't logged, in for this amount of period, send this message." And if they still haven't logged in, send another
right.
message. And if they still haven't logged in, send another message. But it's not a customized message to that particular customer. It's completely like I would call it a hard coded message. Um, but if we can leverage an AI to come in and say, well, you haven't logged in. I know this about you. So let me try to like sweeten the deal a little bit more, sweeten the message so that it's a little bit more harder hitting, maybe more enticing. So yeah, I agree with you. Like
Yeah.
this has got to
Another
change.
thing to your point, in today's world, it's all about playbooks. I have a playbook that says if user hasn't logged in more than X days, do XYZ. And yeah, even that email could be customized to some level, but you still have to have the personal logic to design that playbook, that CTA, whatever it is in your scenario. I'm looking forward to where there's the tools are advanced enough to give you dynamic on the fly playbooks that you still I don't want to go full uh shit, what's the Terminator Skylab. I don't want to go full Skylab or Skynet and have them being autonomous. I still want the ability to say, yes, I like this playbook. This, I'm a consumer of the platform. I want it to say, hey, customers like you use this kind of playbook. Do you want to incorporate this as part of yours? Yes. And then you customize it to your look and feel. That's what I'm looking forward to. Because at some point you get tired of creating all these journey maps, all these blueprints. Okay, so here's our, full level conversation as to, onboarding tech touch customers, North America. Okay, here's the 5 steps that are going to have to happen. It just can't get repetitious.
And we all know like there's not a CSM. There's not like if you've rolled out playbooks, you know that they don't actually get followed. And now they all have the luxury. They just go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, here's my situation. Customer hasn't logged in for a while. What are the 5 steps I should do?" And it
Right.
tells it and so I agree with you. I mean, that's got to be something that's in our future. Have you done any AI or have you leveraged AI in CS ops or
I
in CS
definitely
teams?
I've started to play around with it, and as fun as it is to play with the Geminis, the Chat GPTs, it kind of reminds me going back to understanding the data at the Excel level versus just in the platform. Because if you ask any of those AI agents how that journey should be, off the top, it'll probably give you a 50-60% good answer. But the more data and the more understanding you have of your customer and what your product is, the better questions and information and cues you can give the platform so it can then give you a better result. So yeah,
Totally.
definitely played
Interesting
along with that.
question in there somewhere for me. And I don't know quite how to phrase this because I don't know as much about AI, and I'm learning just like the rest of us. But it's like how do you then avoid like contaminating your training data, or like, okay, somehow the AI is spitting out stuff that you're like, no, I know that doesn't work. Or you fed a bunch of data about certain customers in there, and suddenly it's doing something unexpected, a la Skynet. So as a customer experience practitioner, how do we sort of put those guardrails in?
So I think the best way to keep those guardrails up is not just blindly taking what it says and implementing it. To me, leveraging those AI agents are a tool in my arsenal. I'm going to take that as a recommendation. I'm going to look at it the same way I would take a journey map created from the team, you know, and find ways to stitch it together. The use of language in AI agents can tend to be more formal, and so maybe you need to make it more engaging because that's the tone and dynamics of your company. But you can't completely dismiss it because because I don't have all the answers. My team doesn't have all the answers. Particularly, think about like data teams I've had. When I've hired them, I tell them I hired you because you're exponentially better at this than me. Here's how I do it, and mine will be a very long Excel calculation. I say I don't care how you get to this answer, just this is the answer has it should be. So if you can through your advanced skills do a way that come up to the same conclusion and do it 10 times faster, that's why I hired you. You know, I I know how to do it the old school long way, find better ways to do it. And I think AI is just another way to get to the same answer, maybe just a little quicker because it's helping you out.
I love that. I think it's not a calculator. Like if you plug in a 2 plus 2 in a calculator, the answer actually is 4. That is
Yeah,
like as certain as ever. But when you plug something in an AI, that's not a math question. But like, how should I approach this problem or whatnot? It's more of a suggestion. It's to help accelerate maybe the person's thinking, maybe make them more productive, maybe make them think about something they hadn't thought about. But I love what you're saying though too, like where a playbook that's hard scripted into a program or into a system is like a one size fits all almost. But that's
yeah,
never the case. These are all humans on the other side. They're dealing, with their own circumstances and whatever their own perspectives and all that. And so the more we can feed the AI engines, I think it's going to make those things more powerful and looking at like kind of closed network, so we're not just throwing it all in OpenAI, it's Chat
Right.
GPT that's available for all our competition.
Yeah.
So I love that. Are you thinking about that as well on the data side? Like we spend so much time trying to figure out um, predictive algorithms and like, what's a health score and how does that, like, what is that customer, is that customer hot or cold or whatnot? There's got to be an opportunity maybe for AI there that helps us get smarter as well about like what the data is telling us and how it's not just
Right.
a red, yellow, green or something like that.
To me, health is one of those things that's a huge enigma. It's a virtual dartboard. To me, health is not binary of good or bad because I could think of about a dozen different dimensions of health off the top of my head, whether it's financial, are they paying their bills? Are they engaging with your product? Are they opening your digital emails? Where I'm actually excited about the future, and I've talked to multiple of large vendors, CS platforms on this. I want a health score that the platform is dynamic and gives me recommendations on what it should be. For product usage, enterprise level customers in this sector, we see that 90, show me the bell curve. Where is it that the majority of, what's the definition of good care usage? Well, most customers are in that 93% usage of licenses. Okay, so that's going to be my delineation for good. For me, maybe, I don't want to have to spend the time to go do all the calculations for all the different iterations. I want the platform to do it. Maybe we track open rates of emails. But if I hope that AI comes back to me at some point and says, yeah, there's no huge delineator on this between good and bad customers. So it's just creating noise. That's where I'm hoping to let that the platforms use AI. Now, the challenge that some of them are going to have, some of the platforms customers are going to have is as yeah, I've been at a large company and they have a very hard stance on no use of AI for our customer data. And so finding ways around that hurdle are going to be key. This company is creating their own chat GPT like product. So these platforms are going to have to find ways to integrate with different AI engines that a company may have. And I'm sure they're not the only company out there, enterprise level company that has their own unique AI agent because it is it's all about the proprietary data at some point. So,
I think you can count on that. Everybody's totally thinking about it. And yes, I have wondered if the privacy issues are going to push a bunch of players into this space, maybe not on a public basis, but the large enterprise companies are going to say, I can't or won't use some of the consumer products that are out there because I don't want to give them my data, but I'm going to build a model in house
right.
and train it and rear it. It sounds like a child. I'm going to
Yeah,
bring it up in the way I want it to be.
I'm going to
It
teach
So
it how
is.
to talk. I'm going to teach it its answers. The whole large language model. We're going to tell it how we act, how we operate. We're going to have hundreds of sales guys ask it random questions and answer them all. And yeah,
and like a child, it will probably
and
misbehave from time to time, and
yeah,
we will adjust accordingly.
And I was gonna say, and that's how Skynet was born. But I absolutely love this topic. I think, yeah, I've worked with multiple large organizations, and we've been experiencing this topic. It's a hard topic in a large enterprise, like
yeah,
figuring out the data privacy and and trying to overcome like what is this thing going to do and how's it going to use our data and are you sure it's not going to share with others?
right.
Yeah, it's such a and the whole buy versus build. Like there's so many different nuances to all of that. It'll be nice to see when the startups start doing this, the companies that maybe can just wing it and see what happens, and then some of the
Yeah,
larger enterprises can start picking it up afterwards.
definitely.
The well, this has been awesome. Like
Yeah.
the just diving into a little bit more AI and kind of diving into your mindset. I appreciate you going through this. I think there's a super positive future out there. And yeah, hopefully we can start landing some of these planes.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for what I mean. I'm excited for the future. I mean, in the last, was it probably less than 2 years, ChatGPT went from only a select few knew about it to everyone knowing about it. So technology is rapidly changing. Whether it's not just CS ops, but the more you can diversify your personal knowledge, embrace where the future is, and find ways to incorporate that. Yeah, that's set you up for success.
Couldn't agree more, Matt. I think, yeah, this generative AI wave, especially that
Yeah.
we've all been riding with our surfboards for the last year plus, has been super interesting. It's just really exposed or pulled back the kimono on what it could do, and we all got to participate. So. But I appreciate your insights and perspectives. I learned a lot here today about AI and about its place in CS ops, CX
No,
ops.
and I appreciate having me on and look forward to talking with you guys more down the road.